I want to invite George up, George Nicholas, our project director of the IPinCH project and our fearless leader, to make a few comments before we turn to our closing.
It's rare to have a gathering like this where we have such deep trust, where that box of Kleenex is getting widely used because we are reaching deep into each other's thoughts, each other's hearts. We've come here together from different places, different families, different cultures, different ways of knowing. We've come here together to learn how to work better together. What we are doing when we try to work with, promote, make better Indigenous research in whatever form it takes is difficult, sometimes frustrating, but always satisfying. And always, always, always worthwhile, even when we don't succeed. It's always deeply personal as well. And by this I mean that I think all of us here have learned to do research with Indigenous peoples as if someone's life is on the line. And I mean this seriously. When, as an archaeologist working on heritage sites, I've come to understand that that ancient site filled with stones and bones is not only there as a source of scientific information, but it's critical to a person's identity, worldview, and well-being. It's a different way of knowing, a different way of valuing. And in doing this kind of research too, we are constantly making mistakes. But we're making those mistakes with good intention. And we are learning from those mistakes some really deep, deep lessons. And I want to briefly share one of those lessons that has affected me so deeply. And several of you have heard this at the recent IPinCH gathering. After working with Indigenous peoples in Canada for, at that point, about 10 years, I was invited to Flinders University in South Australia to give a talk on that work with Indigenous archaeology. And while I was there, I asked some colleagues to take me to a very important heritage site nearby, one that they had worked on with the local Aboriginal community. And I went and visited, and I really appreciated, that it's for its literally scientific value. And 2 nights later, I'm at a Truth and Reconciliation dinner. And I hear that an Aboriginal elder, Richard Hunter, is looking for me. And I assumed that he wanted to talk to me about the work I was doing with First Nations peoples in Canada. And we eventually connected that night. And he laid into me. And he said, "How dare you go to my traditional land without me, without my permission?" And I was taken aback. I was deeply embarrassed because I had assumed that my colleagues would have informed me of the correct protocols. And that's an assumption I should not have made. I should have asked. I knew well enough, but I didn't. Richard and I spent the rest of the evening talking, and we came to a very nice reconciliation. We came to understand each other, an honest mistake, and so on. But I never quite felt satisfied. And soon after, Richard passed. But I never, ever forgot that really important lesson. So there's a lesson here about making assumptions when we're doing research with other peoples, with other values, and so on. But there's another part to the story. About 10 years later, we're well into the IPinCH project. And we're facilitating a series of community-developed and run projects around the world, including one with the Manam Aboriginal community in South Australia. And this was a really important project where the community was taking control over its own affairs related to a very important heritage site. Working with Amy Roberts at Flinders University and Isabel Campbell. And it was only 2 years ago that I discovered that Isabel is Richard Hunter's daughter. And it was one of these magical confluences and congruences that I knew Richard was there laughing. And he said, you know, why wouldn't you have known this? You know, that there was this really deep connection that was running through all of this. So when you have the good heart, good things will happen, sometimes in very surprising ways. And this is something that I think all of you have encountered in one way or another. And I mentioned Richard, you know, specifically because I began my comments on Wednesday by acknowledging a dear friend and colleague, Narcissus Blood, who recently passed. And I thought it fitting to end with an acknowledgement of another person I'd learned so much from, Richard Hunter. Because all of us are the product of everyone that we've encountered in our lives, but also those who came before us and passed on information that made the road that we now walk, and that the road we are walking, we need to improve so that the next generation, as well as our colleagues, learn the lessons that we are talking about here. Because as I mentioned the other day, we need to take this notion of ethical space and ethical working relations and how we can do things better. And not just keep talking amongst ourselves, but to talk to those people who haven't listened, or in fact who may not want to listen. And to ask them not necessarily to agree with us, but to listen. And I think when we do that, we are moving this conversation forward to where it needs to be going. Thank you.
Thank you. Olivia, anything that you wanted to add?
No, I can just, is this on? I can just say thank you. I think I've spoken to most of you. Maybe I'll stand with you, Kelly. I don't have a lot to say. I know we're all excited and emotional and maybe hungry and tired. But when I met you all on the first day, well, at least the 30 of you that were here on the first day and then a few on Thursday, I said that walking in the door, I felt like a small tree in a large forest. And I told you that because I felt like trees don't necessarily speak to each other, at least not in my language. But when you're a small tree in a large forest, the people around you give you strength and they give you support without you even knowing it. And a lot of people in this room have given me strength and given me support. And now on the last day of the conference, I realized they also made me comfortable. So you have that strength and the support of the larger trees, and it made me comfortable where I was. And with all the exercises that we did with the elders, Florence taught us last night how to clear our energy. We had the flutes, like a wind coming in, Vicky playing the flutes. We had Paul, we had Willie, we had Marlene telling us all about different teachings. And so I kind of felt like a wind came through that forest, and it just cleared the air, and I no longer feel comfortable. And that's also a good thing. So when you clear a space, you have room to grow. So I feel like we have this big support system and support team like a forest, but every once in a while you need to just clear that air. And now I feel like I have a little space of my own to grow. And I think maybe a lot of you feel that way. So I just want to thank you all for that.
Thank you, Olivia. I just wanted to have a chance to say a few concluding comments myself and some thanks. I want to start by thanking our elders, our local elders, Victor Guerin, who opened for us, our Musqueam elder, or a Musqueam representative, I hope will join us again for the closing, but he's not here yet, and Florence James from Penelakut Island. Thank you, Florence. I want to thank our elected and hereditary leaders who have joined us today. I want to thank our academic elders and visionaries, especially Marlene and Willie and Catherine and Marilyn. Can't see where you're all sitting. Marilyn, Jim, Willie, Kathy, and especially Paul, who came from not only a long way away from Ohio, but he jumped into something that he had no idea what he was getting into. Your vision and your leadership and your persistence for all these years has been so inspiring to us, and for you all to be in the same room together. Wow. I want to thank our youth representative, Mike. Thank you. I want to thank all the institutional leaders who are here, the organizational leaders. Gail had to leave, I think. Susan is still with us, I think. Thank you. And others, we opened with Andrew, president of Simon Fraser University, Andrew Petter, and we get to we have the pleasure of asking Joy Johnson to close in a moment. And we thank you for coming and listening and being a part of this. I thank our sponsors, mostly SSHRC, in various different ways. It's awesome, actually, that you could get SSHRC funds from a few different directions, so they all supported this gathering. Also our other co-sponsors, the POLIS Project on Ecological Governance, the Center for Global Studies at University of Victoria, and the International Society of Ethnobiology. I want to thank all the speakers. You've been so generous with your time, and it was not easy for any of you to be here. You readjusted everything so that you could be with us today. I want to thank all of you participants. I want to thank your families and your friends who covered for you so you could be here. And that always conjures for me, my kids, and my husband, who I get to see tomorrow night. I want to thank them because that's the only reason we can be here. We're so busy. And that leads me to confess, make a confession. I think I made a Kleenex here. Make a confession, and that is that my vision for this event, my wacky vision that George and the IPinCH team supported, which I'm so grateful for, was really just to get good people with good heart and mind and good body, improve their body, into the same room. And that was all I wanted. And I told you right off the get-go, I was honest. We achieved our goals right from the get-go before we even had to do anything together. So everything else was a bonus. But when we started organizing this event, a pile of money, this conference probably cost $70,000, right? In order to bring great people into the room, people of good heart and good mind, you have to have a convincing reason to you have to have a reason that outcompetes all the other things in their world so they can justify coming. And I have a great sadness about that. And I have a great joy that you've come and joined us and been able to do that. And I'm so glad that you're happy that there's emotion in this room, because I have just a swelling of joy and gratitude. And we thank the catering staff. Are part of our, I didn't finish my confession. My confession was that I really hoped that we didn't really have to have any structure. We did. We probably over-structured, but we hope we found the balance. We tried to be responsive. So it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. But at least we got you here, which was the main thing. And then the other thing was to make sure the space was a good space for us, to make sure we were nourished, to make sure we, the thing that was missing was the exercise, although I think we got close with Lily. And with Paul's help, we did get some body movement in there so that we were being healthy as we were being together. Still got to work on that piece, because I think it's really it's a really important piece that's missing in our ethics, in our living our ethics. We come together, and sometimes we're drinking out of styrofoam cups as we're talking about our relationship with the earth and the creatures. And it's hard on our hearts. It's part of the weight that we carry around with us when we fly somewhere to get somewhere important. We have to constantly be thinking about all these things and making those negotiations and concessions with ourselves. So I'm really grateful that we could have this beautiful space, and we could have this beautiful food and be together and share, and we did the best we could, and I think we did good. Yeah. And so I want to thank the organizing team. There's so many people. I got to stand here for 3 days, and you had to listen to me, and I apologize for that. You're probably good and tired of me. But I'm just that tiny one person of this huge team, and I thank you all, and you know who you are. But especially I need to thank the people who are the most visible and the most essential to making this happen, and that's Brian. Can you stand, please? Keep standing, please. I want the IPinCH steering committee members to stand. George, please stand up. John, Kathy, where are you? Stand up, please. Can't even see my notes with my tears. My research assistant Megan from the University of Victoria. She came. I convinced her to come, and we didn't even know what she was going to do. I knew I needed her to be here, and so she was just here. Can you imagine? All of the assistants that helped with the note-taking, the recording, Anur with the photography. Can you please stand? I know you did it before, but it's so important. The only reason we get to stand up here is because of all of you. And I can't see a thing. Because I can't see anything, can the rest of you stand? Who's Emily, the note takers.
Alexa.
Yeah.
Rebecca.
Aaron had to leave.
Rebecca.
Rebecca.
Drew. Dustin. People just emerged
Sam, of
and
course.
helped out. Sam, I want to tell this story. I discovered this whole graphic recording thing through a different person, a facilitator that we worked with for a different meeting, and I thought this was a really interesting phenomenon, this graphic recording. And she put us in touch. I invited her to talk about this idea because I liked the idea that we could see the record being created and we could kind of validate and verify it and have a chance to correct it as we went. And so she put us in touch with Sam because she was not available. And wow, Sam, it wasn't in the budget, and it was kind of the wacky idea. And George, I just can't forget, he's like, you could just tell, he's like, all right, Bannister. The leap of faith and the trust you put in me, and he's like, all right, he's kind of turned a blind eye, he's really gone off the deep end here.
I've never been able to say no to you, which is how we got the IPinCH project.
Sam, it has been incredible right from the get-go to be able to work with you, and I just really want to tell you that in front of everybody. I just had a tremendous sense of trust that your work was going to enhance our work and enable it, and thank you. I think everyone would agree that has happened. Sam, because he wasn't in the budget, once he got it very quickly what it was we were trying to do, he made it possible. He said, I do some pro bono bit of work, I make that a point for the things I really believe in and I really feel passionate about. So we only were able to pay him a portion of what he really, really ought to be paid. And I'm so grateful for that, Sam, because nobody could have been here but you to be taking the role that you have. Okay, so really all I wanted to say was I started it out, this is my dream to be able to have this, bring good people, a good heart together and good mind together. Now I think your body's improved as well, and we're connected with our bodies. I can retire. I can let go of the last 10%. And my hope is, because I've achieved my goals and my vision by you just being here, and all the work we've done is amazing. I thank you. And my hope is that as you leave, that you will leave feeling that you are leaving in a better way than when you came, because you were here. And we hope the tools you produce will help you to go and do whatever it is you're doing, all your good works in a better way, because it is about working better together. And I'm so grateful for all of you for being a part of achieving that. We've all done it together, and I thank you. we're going to close the event, and I just need to check with John again. Did Victor come?
I don't think so, Kelly.
Okay, thanks. All right then, we'll do our closing now. It was my great pleasure to introduce our SFU President, Andrew Petter. And for our opening, it's my great pleasure to now introduce the Vice President of Research, Joy Johnson, who's fairly new to SFU. And I have to admit, I checked her out when she came because I kind of like to instigate institutional change in this direction. And I was thrilled to know that ethics was one of the stated areas of interest and expertise that Joy has. And then I was even more thrilled to find out, as some of the speakers were invited and we had conversations, that she's very involved in all of this, and I know that the message is being heard and will go forward within SFU and beyond, because she works in many capacities in this way nationally. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you. I feel deeply honored to be here and to have the opportunity to close what I think has been an absolutely remarkable event. Elders, colleagues, participants. I want to begin by again acknowledging the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh nations on whose traditional territories this event has taken place. It is my pleasure on behalf of Simon Fraser University to share a few words with you and to bring this fruitful gathering to a close. When I walked in the room today, I actually knew right away that something different was happening here. This is not your usual conference, I could tell. It was the artwork on the walls. It was the way in which I was welcomed. And it was also the words that were shared with me so quickly, people's excitement about what has taken place over the last few days. Even in our last session together, I heard some really exciting ideas about stepping out, about dancing particles, about twin flutes, about art, about creative space, safe places, tall trees, about bringing down walls, and about everything unfolding as it should. These are very wise words that we need to take with us today. My background, I feel I need to tell you a little bit about who I am, because you've spent so much time talking about yourselves. My background is that I'm a nurse, and I worked in a number of communities in British Columbia. I worked in Burns Lake, British Columbia, in Campbell River. I worked downtown at St. Paul's Hospital, and really felt privileged to do that work as a nurse, but felt it was time to go back to school, and also must confess that I too have a PhD. And my work has been in the area of health promotion, and been very, very interested in all elements of health promotion and health research. And so over the past several years, I have had the privilege of working with a number of Indigenous communities. I also, and this is more recently in the last 8 years, have been part of the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, and in that capacity had the privilege of working on the design of research calls and funding opportunities that were aimed at addressing health issues in Indigenous communities. This work has been deeply humbling, and it's often left me rethinking my own assumptions about approaches to research, about how we can work better together. Indeed, I've had a deep impression that we do need to turn the page and find new ways to work better together. So I am particularly grateful for your work and for what you've accomplished over the last few days. I am disappointed that I was unable to create the time, to be here for the full 2.5 days, because I really do have a sense that you have been on a tremendous journey together. It's really been a privilege for Simon Fraser University to support this national conference, and that's why our president came and opened this conference, and that's why I'm here. to really signal to all of you that this work really does matter to us as an institution. This is an unprecedented event, and I think you should really kind of take stock of that we are making history here. It's brought together nearly 80 people from almost every province in Canada, and it's from as far away as Australia. Invited speakers have included many of the top Indigenous and non-Indigenous scholars and practitioners in Indigenous research in our country from across diverse disciplines: the social sciences, the humanities, health, education, law, representing different academic communities, government, and Indigenous organizations. That's such an accomplishment. Like, really, to bring these people together was a big dream, and it's just so incredible that you've all come together. The conference theme of working better together has been more than an inspirational concept. It also speaks to the way that you all have shared your time together, and your tears, and your stories, and your emotions. And I think you should be congratulated for that. Working across differences and using those differences to come to a deeper understanding and gaining insights is really important work. And I know that this work will continue to be harnessed and used as you go forward. I also know it's been uncomfortable at times. I heard about some of the exercises, looking each other in the eye, you know, really trying to work together in different ways. And it's actually really productive to be uncomfortable and to be in that place. And I really, again, congratulate you for letting yourselves go there. I think that's just terrific. Your collective efforts will undoubtedly inform better policies, practices, and procedures for Indigenous research in Canada. And equally important are the new insights, information, and connections that each of you will take with you. Creating a community, sharing those email addresses, reaching out to one another, inspiring one another. That's very, very important work as well that needs to be, I think, acknowledged. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Intellectual Property Issues in Cultural Heritage Project, IPinCH. And it's interesting, just as an aside, when I'm experiencing something that I just think is absolutely incredible, that I absolutely love, I tend to say, pinch me. It's just so wonderful, just pinch me. And that's the way I feel about the IPinCH project. I want to thank the IPinCH project team for taking the lead in conceiving and organizing this conference. Specifically, we do owe a debt of gratitude to Kelly Bannister, the conference chair. I have just met Kelly 3 hours or 2 hours ago, and I am in awe. This woman has such presence. She is so gracious and so welcoming. I just think that you've been very, very lucky to have her as your chair. So I'm just going to take a moment to totally just really acknowledge her. I also want to thank her collaborators, Olivia, Sylvester, Brian Egan, Kristen Dobbin, George Nicholas, and we've seen, obviously, it takes a village. There are many others that have been acknowledged, who've been part of this important IPinCH project team and indeed this event. Your work and dedication really have made this event what it is. I like this idea of a wacky vision. I'm going to use that on a regular basis. It takes a wacky vision. And there is something about kind of just dreaming an event in a different way, doing things differently. I think that can really create a space for creativity and for really doing our work in new ways. So again, congratulations. I also want to thank all of you who are here for taking the time And it does, as you said, take time to contribute your thoughts and your expertise. The benefit, all of this sharing, I think, is going to really benefit those involved in Indigenous research. We really are honored that our Indigenous elders and cultural experts have had lead roles at this conference and shared generously so that we can all benefit from their knowledge and wisdom. SFU's vision is to be a leading community-engaged university. I feel really privileged that I had the great good fortune to join Simon Fraser University of September this past year, because it's a good vision to have. In our vision, we have enunciated a commitment to partnering with Aboriginal communities, and I am confident that the outcomes of this conference are going to help inform SFU's own policies and procedures related to Indigenous research and research ethics. Ethics is about engagement. Ethics is about relationships. It is really core to everything that we do. So in closing, I want to wish you all the best in your travels home. I want you to continue to ponder your experiences here, to share, to discuss, and to take up the learnings, to embody the learnings, to think about them, to write a paper about what we've learned here today, to discuss, to continue to challenge one another, so that the great good work that has taken place here over the past 2.5 days can really continue. So thank you very much for your attention. I am very, very grateful to have been part of, even a small part of this conference. Thank you very much.
Now my absolute final time with the microphone. There's not really any words to thank Florence. So I'm going to thank the Creator for Florence and for her making an exception. She told me on the way here, and I didn't know this before, I might not have even asked her to come. She says, you know, I stopped doing gatherings and openings. But she said, I'm going to do this one. We have the great honor and privilege of having Florence with us, and you've all met her. You've all shared the kind of love and gratitude I have for her. And now we have the great pleasure of asking her to close in her good way. How'd you go, Florence?
So you only fill in when the elder didn't arrive. I'm going to sing to you. And it's a song, very special song. In the language it has more meaning than we can say in English. And a lot of the language is that way. So one word can have a huge concept, and the context is not small, it's big. So with real great happiness to my heart and hearing Simon Fraser representative, thank you, because you touched on my dream to hear the people speak in the language after it's gone into extinction. And Diana knows that. So it's like almost less than 1% people speaking. So Simon Fraser group came over and asked me for a list of students that they hoped would sign to the class for the language program. It was actually a huge class. So they could have a piece of paper that would get them inside the door to teach the language. So there's quite a number of them there. So that's the partnership that I always dreamed for. Plus other people joining us about the language. And to me, language is culture. Language means that you have an etiquette that you were taught before you were born in a mummy's womb. And mummy helped us from the beginning of the whole process which you call birth. And it was a love that they had that they shared with us. And when my grandmother was placed in a residential school, she suffered because they were no longer allowed to practice the language. So she hid behind this cement wall and she began practicing so she wouldn't forget. And she promised the whole family, that's my family, that everyone would speak the language, and they did. So with her determination, after being there locked inside for 19 years, she come out and she spoke. And she never ever forgot the words that she taught us how to be ladies, and all my other great-grandmas to be speaking. So I share my gift freely of speaking the language, but I always have to come from that context when I talk about something, because that's how it looks to us in the tradition. So there isn't much that I can actually say to you for us to be here. But I know that the ancestors were here, and there's many evidence of it when I walk on the earth. And one day, I know I'm going to tell you a story, I could tell you lots, how the environment works. There's a phenomena happens on the point that I walk on where I go for peaceful time. And there's one day I was sitting as I had retired, and I was sitting on a couch and I was looking outside. It was fall and all the leaves had come. It's called Huisaleno, the big wind that comes to take the leaves off the tree. And this one tree all the leaves didn't come off, so I was watching this tree and it caught my attention. The branch kept going like this. And I thought, what is that? So I got up and I started walking around to really look. Is there an animal, a creature on there, a bug or something? And it kept doing that. And what it was trying to show me was, it was trying to get this one leaf off. That of the whole tree, there was only one leaf, and it was trying to shake it off. And there was no more wind. So this is how the earth looks to me when I look at it. It has many things to show you. You just need to take time, stop, and have a look. And so I just wanted to share, and I have lots more, but I don't have the time. So I'm going to ask you to say CM is plural for CM, my highly respected one. My highly respected ones, I thank you all for all that you do, and I hope that the ancestors bless you greatly when you move upon the earth. That's because you're honoring the nations that you touch upon with true, genuine love that we spoke about in an open space. So I'd say,